In this video, we have compiled all the known information regarding the most anticipated games of 2022. The list is quite long, so gamers definitely have a lot to choose from. A Plague Tale, Requiem. In medieval Europe, the plague is raging with might and main. Hordes of rats roam everywhere, and the omnipresent Inquisition administers its justice. The young aristocrat Amicia, together with her younger brother Hugo, will again have to escape from this very Inquisition, using any means. It is clear that young people cannot oppose anything to adult men in terms of physical strength, so any problems in the game are solved by banal hide-and-seek and ingenuity, and, judging by the trailer, the periodic use of a crossbow. The main feature of this plague epic, on which the gameplay is built, is the realistic hordes of rats. Vile rodents are a serious danger, since in a matter of minutes they can gnaw a human body to the bones, but nothing will prevent Amicia from setting the tailed beasts on their pursuers with various tricks. And now it looks even more spectacular, thanks to a thoroughly prettier graphics. Gotham Knights. The developers from WB Montreal, who had previously been involved in games about the Dark Knight Gotham, coolly received by critics' origins and help in the creation of Arkham Knight, have long announced a new action game where a whole squad of superheroes replace the billionaire in a bat mask. It will include Batgirl, Robin, Red Hood, and Nightwing. Together they will face the powerful group of the Court of Owls, which seized power in the city after the disappearance of Batman and the death of Commissioner Gordon. There are no specific details about the gameplay and the plot yet, but the demonstrated gameplay videos and interviews with the developers make it possible to roughly understand that we are facing a cooperative action game with RPG elements and the ability to knock out various loot for our characters. Something similar has already been in the Marvel's Avengers, scolded by all, so let's hope for the ability of WB Montreal to learn from other people's mistakes. Hogwarts Legacy. Back in 2018, there were leaks about a large-scale Harry Potter project, but since that time the game has ceased to show any signs of life. Many fans were even worried that Warner Brothers had hacked the idea and were not going to release anything. Hero just released recently made it clear the work is in full swing and, which is likely to be completed right before the release of new Fantastic Beasts. Also, many interesting details have been revealed, which fans of the universe will certainly be interested to know about. In the beginning, gamers will be offered to completely customize the character to their liking in an albeit not very multifunctional, but quite advanced editor. You can choose hairstyles, eye color, gender, race, etc., but this will not in any way affect the plot backbone of the story, which is unchanged everywhere. The hero is a fifth-year student transferred to Hogwarts from another magic school. For what specific reasons, you have to find out along the way. Apparently, this is an important part of the plot. There will even be some non-linearity in dialogues and quests in the game, largely tied to the initial choice of the character's origin, whether he will be a muggle, an ordinary person, a half-breed, or a purebred sorcerer. God of War, Ragnarok. The continuation of the soft restart of the God of War series, in which Kratos went to the expanses of Norway, became a family man and fought with the pagan pantheon of those places, promises to be even more eventful and epic, judging by the released trailer. The name Ragnarok alone already suggests that a battle awaits us between the Scandinavian deities and self-fulfilling prophecies about the end of the world. God of War, Ragnarok, as announced by the developers, will be the last northern adventure in the series. But this does not mean that the franchise will go on a long-term vacation or reboot. It is quite possible that in the future we will find ancient Egypt, which in terms of mythology can easily compete with Greece or Scandinavia. Saints Row. Despite the fact that the first trailer for the restart of Saints Row was thoroughly showered with Rotten Tomatoes, they say the new gang of Saints rather resembles not tough gangsters, but a bunch of soy hipsters. A large number of people still hope that the long-awaited new part in their favorite open-world sandbox on practice will turn out to be much better than in the demonstrated videos. After all, the game is slated for release in August 2022. The developers still have plenty of time to make any changes. In terms of gameplay, it remains just as insane here. Gamers will have to participate in shootouts and chases, pouring bullets at opponents and using the most exotic weapons. But in the restart, it was nevertheless decided to somewhat reduce the intensity of passions and not slip into absolutely fantastic, which we could observe in Saints Row 4 and Get Out of Hell. A new gang of saints will have to stir up a small Mexican town, establish criminal businesses there, and take over territories from hostile groups. More details will be announced closer to release. Stray. What happened that millions of gamers around the world secretly dreamed about? A full-fledged three-dimensional game was announced, where you can take control of a cute cat. The internet loves these fluffy assholes, so the project was hyped from the very first show. And the concept itself looks interesting. The four-legged pet was separated from its family and now wants to return, overcoming any obstacles on the way, be it puddles of toxic acid or spinning, deadly blades. In Stray, you will need to explore not an ordinary city, but a large futuristic metropolis full of robots and other products of technological progress. One of them, a small drone Model B12, will play an important role in the story being told and will become your assistant, thanks to which it will be possible to get to certain objects, interact with the inhabitants of the city, and even participate in battles. How exactly this will be implemented while unknown. It is also worth noting the beautiful graphics, which will contribute to a greater immersion in the atmosphere of this adventure. Marvel's Midnight Suns. If you still don't know what the developers of the legendary XCOM series are doing now, here's a hint. They are working on a large-scale tactical game in the Marvel Universe. The Midnight Suns promises to bring more superheroes under their banner than any movie in the cinematic universe, not even Avengers Endgame. The squad can include Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Doctor Strange, Blade, Iron Man, and many other characters known from comics and their film adaptations with extraordinary abilities. Together they will have to confront a threat never seen before. In the Midnight Suns plot, the occult Nazi organization Hydra used dark magic to summon Lilith, the mother of demons, and she, in turn, also began to make sinister plans to resurrect Cthulhu, the Lord of Darkness himself. With such a threat, the Avengers alone were unable to cope, so a much more powerful and numerous squad was formed. In the new story, intense tactical battles, a dark atmosphere, and many references to comic book culture await us. Syberia: The World Before. Despite the deafening failure of the third part and the death of the creator of the series Benoit Sokol, Syberia nevertheless decided to return to the monitor screens for the fourth time. The plot finds Kate Walker trapped at the bottom of a salt mine and adds a new protagonist, a certain Dana Rose, a 17-year-old pianist whose story unfolds in 1937 and is somehow connected with Kate and the events of 2004. We will have a game for two protagonists, classic puzzles, as well as pixel hunting and other attributes of the genre. The developers had to learn the lesson and understand exactly what the Syberia audience wants to see. Among the pluses of The World Before, it is also worth noting the prettier graphics and the soundtrack by Yidon Zur. At one time, he had a hand in such imperishable hits as Fallout, Dragon Age, and Prince of Persia. Horizon Forbidden West. Continuation of Aloy's adventures, in which a girl goes to the Pacific coast in search of a cure for a mysterious plague that kills everything that infects. As befits any good sequel, Forbidden West multiplies what people loved the original for, and at the same time expands the world, adds new enemies and interesting gameplay mechanics. Already, you can find many trailers and demos on the network, which show new outlandish cars with which we will have to fight. Graphically, the game looks amazing and deserves to be called a next-gen project. Nevertheless, Sony decided not to upset the owners of the previous generation of their consoles with a sudden cut of support and promise to release Horizon 2, including on PS4. Of course, you will have to play on outdated hardware with reduced graphics and a frequency of 30 frames per second. So if you have the opportunity to upgrade, it is better to do this before February 18, 2022. Elden Ring. Winner of the most anticipated game title at the Game Awards 2021, which is not surprising given the high credibility of From Software from the gaming community. Miyazaki and company did not reinvent the wheel, but decided to make their Dark Souls even more flexible in terms of the combat system, more ambitious and beautiful. We also, as before, beat enemies who do not forgive mistakes and are ready to hit our character. As soon as we substitute ourselves for him, we fight giant bosses and grasp the unobtrusively presented plot bit by bit. But now the events unfold in a truly open world. Where to go is up to you. Among the changes, it is worth noting the ability to move and fight on horseback, finally an adequate jump and height, significant balance adjustments for a more honest PvP, many simplifications in order to save the player time and optimize his movement around the map. People who were lucky enough to participate in beta testing were mostly satisfied with what they saw. The performance on the PS4 isn't impressive, though. Best played on PC or next-generation consoles. Warhammer 40,000, Space Marine 2. In the wake of interest in the Dark Millennium universe, Saber Interactive does not miss the chance to sell some more meat, pathos, and grotesque to its main audience. Their content in Space Marine 2 promises to exceed the performance of the first part, and in fact, it would seem much more. The protagonist shreds enemies with a chainsword and shoots bursts of explosive shells into them, scatters Tyranids no worse than a bear in a pack of mongrels, and generally behaves extremely aggressively under a voiceover about Imperial honor. To hammer in a terrible alien creature on your fists, jump into the thick of the fight at full speed and make a rustle there. Everything is quite within the framework of a morning warm-up for a heavily armored Superman. Ultramarine Space Marines manage to carry a bolt pistol and chainsword at the same time. A weapon unnecessary at a particular moment clings compactly to the generator behind their backs. And it is not yet known what other tricks the aged and worn-out Titus learned with his squad. The gameplay has not yet been demonstrated, but the game already wants to be pre-ordered. Dying Light 2. The second installment of the zombie parkour action game from Techland, which promises to surpass the original in many aspects. The action will be largely reworked, more fleeting, aggressive, and scenes in which the protagonist puts a dozen enemies down in a few seconds promise to become familiar. Such an approach cannot but rejoice. It saves the player from the tedious trampling in one place, waiting for the end of the line of opponents who gallantly await the death of their predecessor. There are, of course, controversial issues in the combat system. For example, the trailer showed how our hero hits the ground with a heavy object and throws all the enemies around. It looks silly and unrealistic. In addition to combat, the approach to storytelling and city exploration will also change. In the course of the passage, we will have to make elections that affect not only history, but also the city that surrounds us. You can navigate along it not only on foot. Parachute flights, grappling with a grappling hook, and ground transportation are available. Sounds cool, especially considering the long-term support of the first part of Dying Light. If the second turns out to be just as successful, we will have a lot of DLC. Starfield. Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. All over the world they can praise Elden Ring as much as they want and fantasize about how many mods they will install on Starfield in the future. But one thing is clear, among domestic gamers, Stalker 2 is out of competition. People can no longer wait for spring, when they will be given the opportunity to go to the Chernobyl exclusion zone, filled with warring factions, dangerous mutants, and mysterious anomalies. The scale of the world will be increased, and they promise to assign a much greater role to survival. Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl will be a temporary exclusive for Xbox Series 10 and PC, and the developers note that the multi-platform will not harm the project. Users of personal computers will be able to enjoy the magnificent, high-tech graphics, which they appreciated in the gameplay trailer. People, however, are not ready to believe the words and believe that the developers have decided to hype in the Ubisoft style, and a downgrade on the release is inevitable. If your favorite game is not included in this list, write it in the comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel, watch our other videos, press like, turn on notifications, and you will always be aware of what to play today.